Hey guys, what's going on? It's Shatterpoint back with another video, and in this one we're going to be talking about the new Batman game in development at WB Games Montreal and the villains that I would want to see get a redo from the Arkhamverse. So first up is Jack Ryder. In Batman Arkham Asylum, you heard him talking over the radio. In Batman Arkham City, you had some optional dialogue with him in the beginning of the game, and then you saved him from being killed by Deadshot. In Batman Arkham Knight, he got kidnapped by Deacon Blackfire and you had to save him. All of these interactions with him in the Arkhamverse were very brief and could have involved more. It also would have been really interesting if we got the chance to see him turn into his alter ego, the Creeper. The Creeper is a lesser known villain, but he's pretty interesting. I would have liked to see him. That would be a nice twist. Next up is Firefly, aka Garfield Lynns. In Batman Arkham Origins, we had that one really cool boss fight with him on the bridge, but in Batman Arkham Knight, we just chased him around in the Batmobile after he lit some abandoned buildings on fire. Though that one boss fight in Origins was really cool, I feel like we could have had more backstory on his character. And in Batman Arkham Knight, again, we could have had a little more backstory on his character and maybe even had a different interaction with him in the game. That would have been nice. Next up is Deathstroke, aka Slade Wilson. We had a really cool boss fight with him in Batman Arkham Origins, but in Batman Arkham Knight it was just a tank battle. Again, same with Firefly, we did have that really cool boss fight in Batman Arkham Origins, but we got very little backstory. And then in Batman Arkham Knight, we barely got to see him at all, and when we finally did, he was in a tank. In my opinion, I thought that his story in Arkham Knight was okay, but I feel like the final boss fight should have been better. It was a letdown. Next up is Man-Bat, aka Kirk Langstrom. Man-Bat was portrayed as a science experiment accident, and then you flicked your controller sticks left and right a few times to make a cure, and then you jumped on Man-Bat's back animated series style. Man-Bat does so much as a character, and he's so much more than just a science experiment gone wrong. I feel like his story in Arkham Knight could have been a lot more entertaining and had so much more depth to it. Next up is Deadshot, aka Floyd Lawton. Floyd Lawton is such a cool character, and his motivations with his daughter are very moving, but none of that was explained in the Arkhamverse. In Batman Arkham City, you solve a few of Deadshot's murders, and then you have an extremely brief boss fight. In Arkham Origins, you solve one of his murders, and then you have, in my opinion, a pretty basic boss fight with him. Floyd Lawton could have had a really cool and moving and entertaining story in the Arkhamverse, but in my opinion, I feel that he was very underused and we could have seen a lot more. Next up is Two-Face, aka Harvey Dent. In my opinion, Two-Face is one of the most psychologically interesting characters in all of Batman's rogues. To start, Harvey Dent is introduced as one of the saviors of Gotham, the district attorney. And then he has a slow downward spiral into becoming a supervillain, Two-Face. We didn't see any of that psychological struggle in the Arkhamverse, we only saw him as Two-Face. In Batman Arkham City, he stopped Catwoman from robbing him, and then he robbed Catwoman. And then in Batman Arkham Knight, he robs banks. He could have had such a deeper story in the Arkhamverse, especially in Origins. They could have introduced him as Harvey Dent in the main story, and then we could have had a Two-Face origin story as a DLC or something. I just thought he was very underused, especially in Arkham Knight. Literally all he does is rob banks. There is no other motivation in the entire game. Next up is the Vantrilaquist, aka Arnold Wesker. In Batman Arkham Asylum, we saw his puppet, Scarface, and he had some interesting dialogue in one of the Scarecrow missions, and in Batman Arkham City, he's seen as an Easter egg inside of Penguin's Iceberg Lounge. Arnold Wesker is such an interesting character, and it would have been really cool to see him introduced into the Arkhamverse somehow, whether it be in Arkham Origins or one of the games after. Personally, I think that Arnold is one of the most psychologically interesting characters in all of Batman's rogues. He doesn't top Two-Face, but I still think he's really cool. Arnold, the controller of the dummy Scarface, does not run their gang. Scarface runs the gang, and Arnold is portrayed as the dummy. That would have been a really interesting story to see, and that should have been introduced into the Arkhamverse somehow. Next up is Clayface, aka Basil Karlo. The way that he was introduced in Batman Arkham City was done perfectly, and I don't think they should change anything at all when it comes to how he was portrayed in that game. But when it comes to the rest of the Arkhamverse, he has a really good origin story, and even after that, he has very interesting stories, and I feel like they should have adapted him somehow. He did have a brief Easter egg in Batman Arkham Asylum, but all we got to see him do is just morph into different people. Next up is Black Mask, aka Roman Sionis. I thought in Batman Arkham Origins his story was really interesting, but at the halfway point in the game you find out it wasn't Roman Sionis, it was just the Joker the entire time. Personally, I didn't mind the Joker twist, but from that point on in the game, Roman Sionis just smuggled drugs. In Batman Arkham City, there was a very brief Easter egg where you got to see him in the beginning of the game, and then later in the game you got to see him on a poster. And then in Batman Arkham Knight in the Red Hood DLC, you have a very basic boss fight with Black Mask, and then Red Hood kills him. Black Mask is a very interesting character, and he has interesting stories. I feel that he should have had the spotlight in one of the games. But that's going to bring this video to an end. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, and when you do, make sure you hit the bell so you get notified whenever I do drop a video, and I will see you guys in the next one.